Thank you for listening to the Business and Beyond podcast.
We appreciate all of our listeners. If this is your first time listening to the Business and Beyond podcast, we hope you enjoy this episode. Episode 57 of the Business and Beyond podcast is brought to you by Hawks Event Rental Service. Whether you're listening on one of our podcast platforms or watching us on YouTube, thank you for tuning in. Go ahead and like this episode and subscribe just so you don't miss any of our future episodes. And if you are watching on YouTube, as you can see, I'm here alone in the studio running solo today. Tony will be back for our next episode. But I wanted to bring something up and talk to everybody about something I've been seeing on Facebook and Twitter, mostly Facebook. And whether you have your own brand or small business or just a page separate from your normal Facebook profile or a page on Twitter, business page, whatever, I think these will apply. Really, it's talking about social media etiquette for businesses, and etiquette may be the wrong word, but let me explain what I mean by that. Not so I'm saying, yeah, you're supposed to post like this, be polite. No, I'm not trying to be a Karen. To be a Karen where I'm telling y'all what y'all can and cannot or should and should not say. It's mostly just advice and not unsolicited. I've seen people asking questions about this. I've noticed how people have been portraying themselves and posting. Now, whether they're using a personal page or their personal profile and a business page, using them interchangeably, we'll talk a little bit about that. But usually it's about posting opinions too. And, we all know where that has gone talking about these days with different political issues going on. And you have, a lot of sports and a lot of politics being posted, but, the difference in posting opinions about one of the two, the Cowboys could lose on Sunday, and Monday morning I go fill up my tank. I'm not cursing Jerry Jones for high gas prices. So there is a line between those. I mean, some people take sports very seriously. I'm an avid fan, but I don't let it get in the way of my normal day-to-day life, as some people may. But politics is just one of those issues. And when you're posting political issues or questions or comments, you're looked at differently, or your business or brand will be looked at differently whether you intend it to or not. A great example, not obviously talking about nationwide politics, but just local. Here in our area, we've recently had a school district bond come up for vote, and everybody was split. Everybody in the community, it seemed it was 50-50. A lot of nasty things being said. A lot of people who you could tell when you see a post like this, and then there's like 200 comments, you could see it was a legitimate question or a comment. It just kind of got away from them, whether they participated in it or not. You see just some of the terrible things being said, but not only saying things and being personal with it, but there was some misinformation involved. There was not necessarily information that was wrong, but maybe they were interpreting it wrong, and which it's politics, right? That can go with any political issue. And you see people in there, especially in a small community, there are people that own businesses, and people look at them, like I said, interchangeably one and the other, whether they have a separate presence on social media or not, you know, hey, he owns this or this person works here. And in this particular case, I didn't necessarily see any issues with people posting negatively towards this business, but just so you know, it can matter. Going back to the sports analogy, I don't know that if I'm a Cowboys fan, I see somebody posting positively during an Eagles game, Philadelphia Eagles game, that they're obviously a fan. I'm not going to decide, well, I'm not going to go to that person's store or use his service anymore. In fact, I do have somebody I use their business, and they are an Eagles fan. But politics, I can definitely see that. I don't usually get involved in judging politics like that. I keep myself very well informed, and I'm really involved in politics. So I like to think I'm more empathetic towards that. So you're not going to go on Facebook and see me having discussions with other people commenting about politics, unless it's just a legitimate question people are asking, and you can see how those get out of hand all of the time. But there's just no point to it. You can see just you're not going to change anybody's mind. I don't care if you think you're right on a political issue and they're posting something, and you just like, I have to tell them they're idiots. Even if you're right and they're wrong, it doesn't matter. You're not going to change their mind. It doesn't happen. So some things you can do. Again, I'm not telling you don't do this. I'm not telling anybody. The only thing I am telling you should do for your business or your brand or whatever entity you have on social media is just to have a plan overall. This episode is not really about politics. It's just kind of is a gateway into talking more about what's going on. And I think the overall theme for this episode, if you take something away, is to have a plan when you're posting things, when you share things. And talking about politics, let's just kick it off by starting with reading the room. Whether you're talking about your followers, you're talking about the people who could follow you, what dynamics these people would have or follow, you just have to know to read the room and understand that, if you, let's say you lean to the left, let's say you're liberal, far to the left, just to the left of center, either way, and you happen to own a gun store or shooting range, maybe sharing political things that you agree with probably wouldn't be the smartest idea, because you would assume most of your customers or followers would probably lean more to the right. Things like that. I'm not saying don't do it, but just understand what you're doing, and maybe don't get in political discussions like that. If you're, obviously gas prices are crazy right now, and whatever you want to associate with those high gas prices, there's a lot that goes into it. But posting things like that, like fun things like thanks Biden with a picture of whatever the price is you just paid for gas, understand as a business owner, or if you run a podcast or you're a writer or whatever, understand that people associate that with your business, and it's definitely not too far-fetched to assume that if you voted for Trump and somebody else did and they hate Trump, and you're very vocal about your support of Donald Trump, they might not go to you. They might not use your service or read your articles or listen to your shows. It's all about understanding that. And, for example, in this podcast, I don't talk a lot about politics, outside this episode, but where I give my opinion on a lot of stuff, a lot of different topics. And that's intentional. It's not that I'm not into politics, that I don't understand politics. That this is a business associated podcast, small business entrepreneurship, fun things like that. And Sometimes politics goes into it, like right now. I'm not going to not talk about it, but there's no reason to alienate some of my listeners, some of mine, Tony and mine listeners, just because I just have to let you know who I voted for or what side of the aisle I'm on. There's no reason, because this is not what kind of episode this is. And when people post a lot of stuff, you're commenting, be nice no matter what. There's no reason. Like I said, I don't care if you're talking to a complete idiot on the subject, whether it's politics or sports or anything. There's no reason to be hateful or hurtful. Play it in your head. Idiot posts something and you comment on it, calling them an idiot, telling them here's the information. And maybe you don't start out that strong. Maybe you're just like, well, you're wrong. Here's what. You're not going to change their mind. And if you do, they're going to be resentful. It doesn't matter. There's no purpose. Try, when you post things, I like sharing things. Have you ever shared something funny, or you posted something funny? A meme or something, maybe you even created it. Maybe you designed the meme and posted the picture. And then people will save that picture and post it themselves, and you can tell because they're on your friends list. That's how they saw it, and you can see them posting it. And you're like, why didn't you just share that? You could, especially if it's a business, you want the credit for it, you want the advertisement for it. But look at it the other way around. I like to use the golden rule for the same reason, be nice, treat people how you like to be treated. But when you share stuff, maybe try to always get credit. If you're sharing it specifically from their page, and obviously they're getting credit for it because it shows that they posted it. But lots of times when you get information that you want to post that's relevant to your business or brand or whatever, to say, hey, I stole this from whoever, and tag him in there, because trust me, people don't look at that and think, oh, it's not original. It's social media. Very little is original. You're sharing memes. It doesn't matter. Or sharing information. Nobody's going to look less upon you because they didn't think it was your original thought or post. So always give credit. It helps out in business relationships a lot, especially on social media. And again, there's a lot of people that are very vocal on their personal Facebook posts or Facebook profiles, Twitter profiles, Instagram, whatever. And then they have a separate page for their business, and it's kind of one and the same. They're always posting and sharing posts between one another, which is fine. Again, have a plan for that. Know what you're sharing, when you're sharing, will it be relevant? A lot of times you have a page because a lot of on your personal profile, you have friends and people that will never use your service for whatever reason, depending on what your service is. He's got friends and family that don't care. Sharing posts is fine, but watch how you do it. Keep stuff relevant. Don't share everything. You want to watch how you're mixing business with pleasure. The same token, going the other side. We have our Business and Beyond podcast pages. We don't typically share a lot of stuff that's not relevant to that, whether it have to do with business, the economy, or like if you're a regular listener to us, a listener of our show, we're not too serious about things. We like to have fun. Don't have a cocktail right now, but it's a little early in the day for that. But typically we have drinks going on, and we talk about that as well. But when I'm on vacation, I'm not sharing all of my pictures and things on Business and Beyond podcast page, because the people who follow that don't really care. The people who follow me are friends with me on social media, my personal profiles. They do care, or at least I hope they care. That's what they would rather see, or those people would rather see it than my listeners. Maybe not. Maybe my listeners want to see it, but in general, watch how you're mixing business with pleasure. On that same note, try to limit how much you use bots, robots, just automatic automatic features on, depending, it really depends on what kind of business or service you have, or what your business entity is. But on social media, you probably have something that when somebody messages you, it's an automatic reply saying, we'll get back with you as soon as possible. That's great, good, whatever. They know their message was sent, which also, on that note, message back as soon as possible, as soon as you possibly can. Some people, especially small businesses, will have a automated voicemail when you call in, which can help, especially when you have one phone number for multiple people and you don't want personal numbers getting out. It can help when, rather than having that one call go to one person and then them try to distribute it, press whichever number for somebody, but always make sure when somebody's calling your business that they are able to get to you or a real person very, very quickly. You don't want them to have to deal with automated services, especially when they're not satisfied with something, especially when there's an issue they need to talk about, or even if they just want pricing or have a quick question. You could lose potential business from something like that. And it's a knock on small businesses when they have that, because that's kind of one of your things with the small business. Hey, it's not like AT&T or Wells Fargo, nothing against those companies, but it's really hard to get in touch with a person when you call, Google AT&T customer service or whatever customer service number. With these big companies, it's very difficult to get to talk to a real person. And you don't want that. Maybe you have it to make it sound more professional, that you're not just working out of a shed or something. That's fine, but just limit the bots as much as possible, especially messages. Have you ever gotten a Facebook page of a company and you click on there and it has suggested messages, and you message back and comes back with a question? Okay, let me help you with that. What would you like? And it keeps going on, and you don't want to have to deal with that. Again, message back as soon as possible, and going on to, don't mix business with pleasure. Watch how much you're posting as well. I think social media is great advertising for your company, in a free sense. I mean, there's options to market your company and spend money with Facebook and Twitter, and those are good ways to advertise too. But it's gotten to the point where it's kind of a minimum of having a Facebook page or a Twitter page for your company, or to have some presence on social media. And I think some people can go overboard with how much they post. Obviously, post relevant things to your audience. Again, read the room. We're talking about your plan here. But don't post, if you're a restaurant, don't post every menu item 20 times a day. Have specials. Post 2-3 times a day. Twitter, I think you can get away with it a little bit more, tweeting quite a bit. I think you almost have to tweet quite a bit just to stay on people's feeds. But just bombarding people with posts, so especially when they subscribe, which is great. You want them to subscribe to you to get alerted when you post something, and they're gonna turn those subscriptions off or those notifications off really quickly if you're posting 20 times a day for not anything that really matters. Don't post too much, but when you do post, hashtags are a really good way of reaching people that aren't already following you. But some people overuse them. They'll realize, hey, obviously Twitter, you can only use a certain amount of characters, but other social media sites don't limit you that way, and you can use a certain number of hashtags, and people just bombard their posts with 100 hashtags, which it can get your post out there, but a lot of times it just looks really bundled up, and even sometimes desperate. When I post something, I try The hashtag section or the hashtag part of it shouldn't have more types in there than the main body. 5 to 10 hashtags on Facebook, Twitter. Twitter is hard to get a lot more than that. Instagram, you can kind of go a little more crazy with them, but limit it. And watch what you're hashtagging. Every social media website that I'm aware of, when you hit hashtag and type what you want your hashtag to be, it'll tell you how many posts have that hashtag, and you typically want to go with the higher number of posts because it can be trending. More people are looking at it, more people care about it. So do a little research. Usually when you post. When you know what you're going to post, you can kind of look for specific hashtags. Sometimes, if you don't know what to post, but you know you need to post something, just see what's trending. Obviously things that aren't necessarily in the news, but just different hashtags, and see what you can kind of wrap up into those hashtags. And something I think this may be the number one problem with some businesses or people or salesmen in general is knowing when to connect or network and not sell. I've worked in sales quite a few years, and a lot of the times they'll say, always be selling. Well, yeah, but not always be. You don't want to always be in selling mode. You just want to always be doing something that works towards the sale. So if you're connecting on social media, even networking, that's great. But know when it's time to sell. When you get a friend request or connection request on LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, or Twitter, Instagram, and you follow them back. How many times you do that and then you immediately or very soon after get the notification ding that you got a message, and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have accepted that friend request. And they're just talking to you, about investing in Bitcoin or buying insurance with them. And if you're into, if that's how you make your money, nothing against you, just know when not to sell. Connect, network. Typically when I've sold products on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and you just have to know where you're at on those specific networks. Like Facebook, obviously you need to really be careful about how you do it. Lots of times when I'll post something that's relevant to what I'm selling, and somebody will like it or comment, or that's the best time. If they ask, then go ahead and go for it. But if they like it, then you can comment, hey, you interested in something like that. LinkedIn's a little more lenient with it because you're networking. They're not necessarily in the market for what you have, but they're on there for business purposes. And Twitter, you never know. That's kind of the Wild West in that arena. But just know, again, it's going to reading the room. Read your social media. What's appropriate for that? I mean, if you're cold calling, you have one way of doing it that's different than if you're cold emailing. You're not going to have the same exact message. And if you're prospecting in person, it's going to be different. If you're messaging on Facebook, you don't want to copy and paste what you're emailing people directly verbatim into Facebook. And the same thing with LinkedIn. You have to, don't be a bot. Advice from earlier. Know what you're doing. Be self-aware of this. Don't push people, because all they're going to do is unfollow you, block you, take you off their friends list. And that's something, that's where we could talk about owning their information. It's the wrong way to put it, but having connections. And it's iffy if you really have connections when you have Facebook and LinkedIn, because at any time they could just shut down your profile and then you've lost everything. It's really more about going past that step and keeping people as customers. But once you've been blocked, it's over. You can't have them as a potential customer ever. Lots of times when I have people I see as potential customers on LinkedIn or Facebook, add them, and I don't really message them. Starting off, I will share, respond with posts they have. You're going to post your information for your company, your sales, post your next episode of your podcast, your next article, and having 10,000 followers, even though you're not trying constantly to sell to them, that's 10,000 potential people to see your post or react to your post. And we can have a whole nother episode about algorithms, and really, if you have 10,000 followers, you probably have about 500 or 600 people actually seeing your posts if you're not paying for them. But in reality, that's something you need to know to make sure that your social media etiquette works in your favor, not really against you.
Thank you again for supporting the Business and Beyond podcast.
Be sure to hit the subscribe button to be alerted every time we post a new episode.